So you want to just let me know what you think about abortion?
Yeah. So I am pro-choice. It's not because like it doesn't stem from being like a liberal or anything. I just think that there are certain criterias and certain aspects that go into it. I feel like, and if you see the crowd, for example, I want to bring that up. It's 3 girls and like 9 guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, me personally, I don't think men should have a say in this just because it is our bodies. You guys don't really like go through the process of being 9 months in labor, like having that process of what a woman goes through. So me personally, I don't think that this like ratio is right, especially to even have a say in it. I know that you mentioned universal like human rights for all. I feel like if we take away just babies, maybe look at like just children in other third world countries, for example. I don't know if you know what's going on in Palestine, but babies, infants have been getting bombed for the last years or so. And this hasn't been in the media coverage. It's not really highlighted in, I want to say, like, in a Republican's point of view, because maybe babies in third world countries doesn't resonate with what you believe in, or if you just believe in infants, just like it being in a woman's womb. But I feel like if you really want to talk about universal like human rights for everybody, and I want to say maybe you can like look at that perspective of just babies getting bombed. And I feel like a lot of people from the opposing team haven't been like sharing their coverage on that. I feel like it's only beneficial to you guys when you think it is, but you're not looking at like a wider perspective on that.
So I want to start with one of the first things you mentioned, which was the amount of men that are sort of in the audience,
Yeah.
and me being a man.
Yeah.
If it is the case that abortion is murder and it's one of the greatest violations of human rights in human history, then men should actually stand up and say, this is wrong, this needs to stop. And so if my position is correct, and the 70 million innocent children in the womb who have been murdered by abortion over the last 60 years in the U.S. have had their rights violated, their right to life violated, then men should stand up and say, this is wrong, this needs to stop.
I agree with that in a certain aspect, but I also feel like, why do you think you have the higher privilege to decide on what we do with abortion or not when you don't go through the process of that? Like, why do you feel like you have a higher authority to tell us what to do with that?
Because the child in the womb, right,
Okay.
is a human being
Okay.
from fertilization.
Okay.
And when someone chooses to take the life of that human being, it's murder. And I think it's the business of everyone when there's mass murder going on within a country, and it's the obligation of individuals to actually stand up against that evil and try to stop it. So
Okay.
if it was the case that men got pregnant and women didn't, and men were going around murdering their preborn children, and I'm a man, I would stand up to it just the same. I do have to say, I don't think that you're sexist, but your position might come across a little bit sexist in the sense that some people might think that you wouldn't value a man's opinion on abortion as much as a woman's simply because he doesn't have a uterus or he can't get pregnant.
But I also think if you really look at it, like, what about the men who like abandon their kids, or when they find out the woman is pregnant and they're like, oh, I don't want anything to do with it, and it's up to you. You abort it. You do whatever you want with it.
Or even worse than that, what if a man gives mifepristone and misoprostol to his pregnant girlfriend who wants the child, and he's the one who murders the child? In my view, he would be prosecuted for murder for that, and the woman wouldn't, because she wanted the child, loved the child, cared for the child, and she had that child taken away from her from a man who murdered the preborn child.
But then again, that's her choice. If she wanted to keep it, that's completely up to her. But I'm saying that I know that men have such a higher stance on this subject, but when it comes down to it, when a woman does get pregnant, they flee, they leave. And so I don't feel like the woman should be the bearer
wrong, right?
of that.
And that's wrong, right?
That is wrong. But
Okay.
I don't feel like they should have to deal with it alone. If they can't afford a child financially, if they can't afford it within economically of what position they're in, if they're in poverty, if they're not in poverty, they have 100% of that right to let the baby go.
What I love about what you just said, is when the man abandoned the responsibility that he had to his child of loving and caring for his child, we both agreed that that's horrible. I just want you to be consistent with that and say, if a mother goes even further than abandoning the child, but as far as to murder the child in utero, that we look at that with, at the very least, equal horror. I think more horror, because it's actually a direct killing as opposed to just simply an abandonment. So I would just want you to take that parental responsibility and moral obligation that parents have towards their children and be consistent with it across both sexes.
But I can say that for men too. I feel like men have a higher percentage of leaving their unborn babies before they're, if you get someone pregnant, hypothetically, if you like tell her, like, she tells you, like, hey, I'm pregnant, and that's your choice if you want to leave or not. But statistically, men are more likely to abandon their wife and child, leaving the woman to bear it all.
My point is, regardless of like which gender is abandoning who, whatever, the point is that when a man abandons the mother of his child and his child, you condemn that as wrong, because parents have moral obligations to care for their children, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I would just want to see that applied consistently for the mother and her child in the womb. And so I stand with you saying that a man who gets a woman pregnant should care for the woman, care for the child, love the child, provide for them.
But that's the thing. What if they are not able to provide for them? Like, what if they're born and they don't make good money financially? They're not in stable homes. That child is going to grow up in that area, in that environment, and that child is probably not, I'm sorry, they're going to suffer.
And if that child was born, we would never say that any of those things justify killing the born child. And in the same way, we should reason that none of the things you just mentioned should justify killing the preborn child either. Because if they are both equally human, equally persons, then just like it would be wrong for someone to murder their 1-year-old because of a lack of resources, it would likewise be wrong for them to murder their preborn child due to either a current lack of resources or anticipated lack of resources post-birth.
Okay, but let's say, like, if you had a child right now, if you weren't living in a good home, mm-hmm. you would still raise your child within, like, abuse, within just in that area. Like, you would be okay with it because they're alive?
Whether someone chose to raise the child or give the child up for adoption, no matter what they chose in regard to that decision, one thing they should never be allowed to legally choose is to murder the child.
See, that's the thing. I'm really trying to understand where you're coming from, where you're phrasing it as murder. Mm-hmm. Because, I'm sorry, like, maybe I am biased, but you don't carry the child. Men don't get pregnant. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I don't know where this is stemming from, but I just don't think you understand the process of actual birth and, like, the sacrifices and everything that gets into it. It's not as easy as it seems. So it's like, if you're gonna have a child, you don't want to be a deadbeat mom or a deadbeat dad. If you want to raise a child in a positive, healthy environment, you don't want to be either of those things. So why would you choose that for yourself and your baby?
So let's flip it for a second. Let's assume that instead of women getting pregnant, men did. Okay, so let's say that men got pregnant, I was pregnant, and then I chose to take the life of my preborn child in utero, say at 12 weeks development. Would you say that that's murder, that's wrong?
I feel like there's certain things that go into it. It's health complications, if it's rape, if it's a baby that you just simply don't really want in your life. Like, it's not just about, like, having sex or having...
Okay. I think I might have a better analogy then.
Okay.
Let's say that...
I didn't finish, but...
Okay. My apologies.
No, you're good.
I just wanted to make a better one that I think might be more applicable to the situation.
Okay.
Let's say that a girlfriend and a boyfriend have sex. The girlfriend gets pregnant. She wants the child. She buys a baby crib, buys baby clothes for when she gives birth. She's only 15 weeks in development so far. And the boyfriend uses mifepristone. Actually, let's change it to 10 weeks because mifepristone and misoprostol can't be used that late. So let's do 10 weeks. She's 10 weeks in development. He crushes up mifepristone and misoprostol, gives it to her against her will. She thinks she's just eating pancakes, but it actually has the drugs in them. That causes the death of the preborn child. Do you think the man did anything wrong, and should he face some criminal punishment? I think the man should be charged with murder there because he murdered the baby that was inside of her.
Was it intentional or was it an accident?
It was intentional.
Okay, well, if it's intentional, then I agree that the men should face charges.
For what?
If it was an intent act of purposely killing a child, then okay.
The preborn child.
I understand that. I understand where you're coming from. If it's a woman going through a legal way of going to the doctor, getting an abortion, which I don't even know if it's going to be legalized in a couple years, but if she's doing it in a legal way, if she's consulting doctors, consulting her physician, I don't think that's murder. I think she's doing what's best for her and for her child. Like,
I think the question here, though, is what should the law be, right? That's kind of what the conversation's about. And my point is, if you're going to say that when the boyfriend takes that action of causing the death of the preborn child, that he should face punishment, then to be consistent, I think you would have to say that if the woman does the same thing, and instead of taking the pills unknowingly through pancakes, she takes the pills herself, purchases them herself, takes them with intent to kill her child, I think that if we want to treat men and women consistently, we would also have to say that she should be punished for that.
I'm only saying that he should be punished if it was coming from a malicious intent, which
Well, his intent is to kill the child.
yes,
And that's hers too.
if it's coming from a malicious intent from his point of view, then yes, he should be charged. If it's not coming from a malicious intent from a mother or whoever is pregnant, if she just genuinely just doesn't have the capabilities to take care of it financially, economically, then yes, I support her. But if it's coming from a man who genuinely wants to not have his unborn child up into this world, then okay, then I get it. He's coming from malicious intent.
But like all your arguments about lack of resources,
Because
would
it's
likewise
true.
apply- I know, but they would likewise apply to the killing of a born child. And so, if lack of resources justifies killing a preborn child, and the preborn child's equally human as the born child, then a lack of resources for a woman who has a born child would, to be consistent, I think, in your view, have to justify her being able to murder the born child, which I know is not your position, but that's why I think you're a little bit inconsistent.
I feel like whenever this argument comes up, it's always about like, okay, like from your standpoint, I mean, I know where you stand and I know how you look at this, but how I'm looking at it is it's completely up to the mom, and it's how, like I said, statistically, men choose to be deadbeat fathers. They choose to leave. They choose to not take care of their child. It's been proven. There's higher percentages of that. I don't think that the woman should have to deal with that alone. I don't feel like if genuinely, if their partner, whoever chooses to leave, then she should have 100% of the right to get rid of the child. I don't feel like that responsibility should come upon her. If you guys can't take 100% of the responsibility, why should we?
I'm just curious though, because that same logic though, it could be used for a newborn. Because you could have, let's say, a boyfriend and a girlfriend are raising a 1-year-old together, and the boyfriend suddenly up and leaves and abandons them.
Okay.
You would never say that would justify her murdering the newborn.
But like that's the thing. Like I don't think anybody would be in that position if the child is already born. If they're 1 year old, 1 years old, and if her husband decides to leave up and then and there, like obviously you wouldn't just murder a 1-year-old because of that. But
Yeah.
like I said, if it's in the womb and it's just there's so many factors that go into it. If it's like a clump of cells and if it's not like developed
But
yet,
you
then
and I are clumps of cells, and newborns are still developing.
we're not clumps of cells. We are, but like
are.
I'm real. But like you're real, like you're in front of me, you
Yeah,
know,
the
like
child-
we're
the
fully
child in the
grown.
womb is real as well.
But it depends on what, like I said, there are certain stages of birth.
Okay, let's
There's
try
a certain
to
stage of birth.
narrow in on that then, because the thing that's a little confusing to me is when it's the boyfriend who's doing the killing and the woman wants the child. You're
Okay.
saying that that's wrong, and it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, it
Like,
sounds
if
like you're
it's a
saying
malicious
murder.
intent,
Yeah,
that's what I'm
He
saying.
intends to kill the child. That's
Yes,
his
if
intent.
it's coming from a man with a genuine plan to murder his baby, that's where I'm like, okay, like you deserve to be prosecuted.
Uh-huh.
But if it's from just a woman like truly looking at her options, looking at her environment, if she did like get pregnant, like come on, like we all have sex, you know, like you're gonna
I
get
don't.
pregnant.
I'm a
you're
virgin.
Okay.
And it's possible for people to do that. It's
It
possible
is.
for people to wait till marriage, and
It
it's
is.
really the moral decision.
But you like I said, there's other factors that contribute to it. It's not just about having like sex that are consented. It's also about having non-consented sex and like rape. And like I said, there's just so many factors that go into it where I just don't feel like men should really have a say when they're a huge problem of it.
Okay, I'm just going to try to narrow in on something. It doesn't seem to me like your position depends on like the stage of development, because when it's the case of the boyfriend doing the murdering with malicious intent, you say he should be prosecuted. And so it seems to me like your position is not based really on personhood. It's actually more of, and this is going to sound harsh, but it's what I'm hearing. I'm trying to best articulate what I'm hearing. It sounds like your position is really one of special murder rights for mothers, that mothers should have a special right that other people do not have to take the life of their preborn child if they deem that that's what would be best for them or for their child, even though it's obviously not best for a child to have.
Like
their
I said,
life
I'll continue to stand on that. I feel like murder is kind of a harsher term than you're depicting it to be. I feel like that's not how everybody looks at it. If a mother wants to kind of have that like perspective on like murdering her child, then okay, like that's, I mean, there are mothers who murder their daughters, their sons at like an older age. It's not about if they're an infant, like the crime rates like that happens. And I feel like you're only looking at it from a view of like if a child is an infant. I feel like there are cases of like parents murdering their child when they're an adult or if they're a teenager. Like
Yeah, and when they do that, they're charged with murder. But if a mother murders her child who's preborn, they're not always charged with murder. And I think that's problematic, because I think that we should give all human beings human rights.
Okay, but we don't all of us human beings don't have human rights. You see what's going on in the world economy, like right
but
now. Like
I don't have control over what like some
You don't have
foreign
control
country-
over us
what some
either,
foreign
over our
country
bodies,
does, but I
like-
do have control over like what I vote for and what I want my legislators
and that's
passed
your
as law.
opinion, but you don't have control over women's bodies as a whole. You're not in us. You're not like wearing our skin. You're not kicking the baby out of your uterus. Like you're not doing any of that. So I feel like you shouldn't really. I mean, that's your opinion, but I don't feel like you should really base that off of something you haven't experienced or you haven't gone through. You know?
But I'm just curious. This notion that we can't regulate other people's bodies, I don't think that you would be consistent with that because we regulate men's bodies all the time. For example,
Okay, but
men-
I
men
wouldn't
can't-
tell you like, oh, get circumcised. Like right now. Like I wouldn't tell you to do that. It's
But
like
you would tell the boyfriend, don't murder the preborn child. So you would tell him what to do with his body. Don't
I feel like
use your
that's
body
like
to
kind
murder
of
the
like
preborn
common
child.
sense to not murder like not my boyfriend to have to murder my child. Like you know what I mean? Like I feel like that's what I'm saying. Like if he genuinely had like a malicious way of doing that, then yeah, that would have been like, okay, you just murdered my kid. Are you serious? But like I'm saying, like you feel like you have such of like a higher stance on what we should do with our bodies, but I'm not telling you to like get circumcised or like do this and that. Like frankly, like I really don't care because it's not my body. I don't really know your anatomy.
You tell men not to murder though, right?
I feel like the Constitution tells everyone not to murder. Like I feel like,
Except for the child in the womb, who's not protected from being murdered.
but that
right
doesn't
now.
say that in the Constitution. Like
The Equal Protection 14th Amendment.
okay,
the-
but
my point is under the
where
Equal
does it say
Protection Clause-
babies in general. Like where does it state that?
So
in the
under the
Constitution?
Equal Protection Clause, which is designed to protect all human beings equally,
Okay.
I think that should extend to all human beings, which we're not doing right now. So I actually think that right now, the 14th Amendment should be protecting preborn babies. Now, I don't want to get into a legal debate because my goal here is essentially just to convince people of the moral position. And if there's enough people who think abortion is wrong, we'll be able to get to the point of having it abolished, right? If, say, 80% of the population all believe abortion's wrong, then we'll be able to get it criminalized as murder, the Equal Protection Bill passed. And so, with that said, I think we've had a good back and forth. I think we might start repeating ourselves if we keep going.
Okay.
I do want to give you the chance. If there's anything else you want to add or say to wrap it up, then feel free.
Okay. No, I mean, you saying where you stand, I was saying where I stand. I feel like I've heard you out. You heard me out. I honestly, I feel like I want to conclude with saying that once again, you're not living in our autonomy. You don't really know what we go through, so I don't feel like you should really have a stance to, tell us what we do with it. It's your opinion, but yeah, it's where I stand.
Okay. It was a great conversation.
It's a good conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.